One of the most common and significant impacts of COVID-19 has been a disconnect with, support systems. And so as we all know and as we are all experiencing, because of the pandemic, we've been in lockdown, which means we're staying at home, we're not going out as much, we're not connecting with the people we usually connect with physically. And this lack of support and connection has really taken a toll on a lot of young people's mental health. For young people, social connections are important. It's a time in their lives where connecting with people their age is really very important to them. So I think we're seeing a lot of impact from that angle. We're also seeing some impact from a change in what young people are used to. So routine and schedule and things that are normal are really important for young people. And with the pandemic, we've seen a change in what their everyday lives look like. A lot of them are having to do school online. Their days look a little different than they did before. They don't get as much physical activity. And so we're seeing all of these things impacting young people in various ways. One of the ways in which the global pandemic has impacted young people is it's taking them away from a lot of their support systems. A lot of young people find a lot of value in socializing and connecting with people physically, and the pandemic has made it difficult for them to do that. Also, it's impacted them by taking them away from their routines and the things that they were used to and the things that were normal to them. And so they've had to learn a new way of doing life, especially with school, and that has taken a toll on both their physical and mental health. Adults in our communities have been impacted by the pandemic because we're not able to socialize as much as we used to. And socialization forms a big part of support systems for a lot of people. Routines have been interrupted for adults. There's a lot of anxiety, and then there's a lot of learning that has to take place. New learning, because a lot of adults are having to work at home and also keep an eye on their children who are doing school from home. The idea that mental health is a Western problem is one that has been extremely problematic in helping us recognize, understand, and care for the increasing number of mental health challenges we see in Africa. The truth is that mental health is a human challenge that anyone, regardless of race or geographical location, has to deal with. We are starting to see an increasing number of people taking their lives here on the continent because I believe we don't provide enough spaces where people can talk about the challenges that they're having, especially when they start to really lose hope and get into a place that they can't get out of. There's a big lack of safe spaces, there's a big lack of understanding, and there's a big lack of empathy when it comes to people who are dealing with mental health challenges. When you think about physical health and physical health challenges, they can be seen, they are tangible, they are things that we can touch. And so it makes it a lot easier for a lot of us to understand, accept, and be sympathetic towards physical health challenges. On the opposite side, when you think about mental health challenges, you cannot always see them, you can't always touch them, they don't seem tangible. And because of that, for a lot of people, we struggle to see them as real. And so you see a lack of understanding and a lack of empathy when we talk about mental health challenges. As clinicians, we understand the impact of faith in our health and keeping us healthy. However, when we talk about mental health and mental health illnesses, it's really important to understand that just like physical health, there are biological and actually physical illnesses that need to be treated from a science and medical perspective. And so it's very okay to believe and hope and pray, but it's very important that we don't neglect the scientific aspect of it and getting medical treatment together with faith and prayer. So we all have emotional health. And just like we have physical health, mental health, we have emotional health. And at any given time, depending on what we have going on in our lives, our emotional health may be in a great space, a not so great space, and in a really bad place. That's why it's really important to have a good sense at any given time of what is going on with your emotional health, because it impacts all other aspects of your health as well. I think in Africa, one of the easiest or one of the most common forms of discipline involves some kind of physical assault, if we can choose to use that word. And a lot of experiences that young people have growing up in Africa, involve some what I call an abuse of power, when people in authority over them, either in schools or in their homes, treat them in ways that disregard their emotional and mental health. And growing into adulthood, these challenges manifest when we see that young people don't necessarily, for example, know how to manage their emotions. They internalize a lot of the experiences that they have and start to believe that that is the way to interact with other people. And so we'll see these things played out with anger management problem. We see it in a rise in the number of cases of gendered violence, for example, and sexual assault. One of the things we don't do a really great job in Africa is teaching our young people, right from when they're really young, about regulating their emotions and managing their emotions. And we do a great job in terms of, taking care of our children physically and educationally, cognitively. But when it comes to our emotions, we don't pay that a lot of attention. And so children grow into adults who don't know how to manage and regulate their emotions in a healthy way. So because of the pandemic, I think one of the things we need to recognize is that things are different. So one of the first things to do is look at the expectations you have of yourself and be realistic about your expectations, recognizing that you may not necessarily be able to show up the way you used to show up because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of anxiety. So lower your expectations, be realistic about your expectations. Having structure and routine is incredibly important. It gives us a sense of being in control and things not sort of, running amok, if you may. So have a structure, have a routine. That's incredibly important. It's also important to keep taking care of your physical health. The link between our physical health and our mental health cannot be overemphasized enough. It's important to keep an eye on what am I eating? Am I eating well? Am I getting some level of activity, even if it's not at the same level as it used to be? Some form of activity is always really important. We're currently in a global pandemic, and in taking care of your mental and emotional health, it's really important that you manage your expectations. Expectations about what you're capable of doing and what you can manage right now. It's also really important that we find a routine of some sort and stick with it. It's also really important that we pay attention to our physical health. So what are we eating? Are we eating well? That's important. Are we getting some level of activity or exercise? Are we getting rest? Are we giving our bodies enough sleep? That's also really very important. It's also really important that we stay connected with our support systems as much as we can. So a lot of us are doing this virtually, and it's important that we keep on doing that. we've all had a really rough year and things have been tough. But I think it's important that we keep coming back to the humanity that resides within all of us. This is an experience that the whole globe has had this past year. And it's important that we stay focused on our ability as humans to be resilient, to rise above difficulty, and to be kind to each other, because it's important that we look out for each other even as we take care of ourselves.